music. Still don't know what it is, but it is. Oh, hi, I'm Hilary.
I'm Davita.
And we are the two Pilates Chicks. It is season 4, episode 12. And this one is a doozy. We'll try to get through it. But it's one that it came up, and I can't remember how we discussed it, but I've had people, actually it was students, how do you stay so positive in the studio? But we're going to take it a step further, and how as a teacher do you stay positive in the studio when things in your personal life are not so positive?
Yeah.
And you've got to still be in that present, happy, positive, supportive space for the client.
Yeah.
Because we can't go into the client going,
complaining
or whatever, or dumping on them. So that's kind of where we're going with this episode. So we kind of have a plan, but who knows where it will go off to. But how do you think we should start this one? Because there's 2 aspects we talked about.
Yeah.
The one of, like you said, those moments of you had a fight with your boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife or whatever.
Just an annoying drive over. You're irritated.
Traffic. Someone cut you off. Yeah. You don't want to go out later with so-and-so and you're dreading it, or, whatever. Those are ones where we feel like you can just leave it out.
Yeah. So, like, you're irritated and you get to the studio and it's like, okay, well, how do you stay positive and present in the studio with your clients at the time when you're feeling so irritated about things outside. And our thought was, in those moments when it's those like smaller irritations like that, like a daily annoyance or just these stupid little things, it's easier to be able to just like take a breath, try to just like reset and leave it outside the studio. So when you come in the studio, you're like, okay, this is a fresh
start.
And
I like the visual of luggage, like leaving it outside. Pack it up, put it out there. It'll be there when you get out.
Yeah.
It's waiting for you.
Yeah. But just letting that, you come into the new space, and just getting started teaching in the day sometimes can help change that mood, and you just kind of get into it.
And it usually does.
Yeah.
Because you're forcing yourself to, and it was so funny. I was watching on Instagram, Goldie Hawn. And she has this whole thing for children about, being happy, being positive, and she's like, so I think when you're in those moments, you just smiling and being happy and being there for your client can trigger your brain out of that moment, out of that kind of irritation.
Yeah. Well, sometimes pretending to feel okay can help if it's something that's small like that, like just an annoying day.
Yeah.
Or you're just wrong side of the bed today for whatever reason. And you just getting going can just help get going.
Yeah, it kind of rewires you in a way.
Yeah.
So, those kind of situations are, and sometimes it might be hard, because what if you go in and that client is not a positive person?
They're also irritated.
And they're also irritated. It's like, so you have these 2 irritants just like,
But then we're thinking like another situation where it's like a harder thing that you're dealing with in your personal life. Maybe it's a longer term problem.
Not just a moment.
Yeah, it's just not the day or even the week of being annoyed. But you're helping like a family member who's going through health issues, and it can be years of this. And that you can't just leave at the door.
No.
It's not sustainable to just say fake it and you'll feel fine. And like you're saying, your friend was like, faking it is exhausting.
It is exhausting.
And it is. You can't always pretend.
No. And I think that's kind of going into where we wanted to talk more deeply, I think, is how do you keep that positivity in the space when you're really dealing with stuff in your personal life that's draining, constant, and it's like not a moment, it's like years.
Yeah. Long term. And like we were talking about, we've both gone through that recently, where we've had family members that have needed long-term care. And in our job, we're caring for people constantly. So we're always giving
and so now you're double duty, right?
Yeah.
So
it's a lot of energy.
And both of our family members don't live or didn't live close. So it's traveling. It's going to them.
Yeah.
So that also is exhausting too, because all of a sudden on your time off or when you could, you're traveling.
Going to them, taking care of them.
Going to them and taking care of them. So how, in those moments, do you keep going?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we wanted to go with this.
Yeah. And I think, like, so there's the aspect of self-care, like the things that you need to do to take care of yourself.
And we kind of talked about that in an earlier episode. Mm-hmm. We didn't go into this aspect of it, but more of,
just in general, self-care, which in these sorts of things is the same thing. It's like you feel drained because you're taking care of, like, a family member, or you're dealing with a really stressful situation, these bigger stressors in life. So how do you then go into the studio and be present with that client? Because
that's all weighing on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things that I was thinking about is, you know, when we have these clients for a long time, often we spend more time with clients every week. Yeah. They spend more time with us than we all do with our friends sometimes, because you see them for 1, 2, 3 hours a week, every week. And so, you know, being vulnerable and open with our clients is a good thing. Not unloading, yeah, not using their session as your own therapy session. But clients do like to connect us. They're here with us, you know, they're here for a reason.
Yeah, and also I think if you, because it's not like it comes out, like I think you were talking about a client, now I can't remember, but it's like, it's kind of like how it comes out in a client. Like I have a client I'm thinking of in my head where she was like, oh, I won't be here next week because I've got to go see my mom. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, where's your mom live? And she said, oh, here. And I said, oh, my mom lives there too. She's like, yeah, my mom's having, and she started telling me about her mom's issues, which were my mom's issues. Yeah. And then I said, oh, well, my mom's the same. So she was like, oh, so it kind of opens up another aspect of trust, of support, of connection. Yeah. And it's not like she comes in and every time we don't talk about it. It's like kind of like, you know, she will ask at the end of a session, how's your mom? Or I'll say, how's your, you know, but it does help so that if there is those moments where you're not yourself, the client's like, oh.
Like they know. They know. I get it.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. But it's nice to just be authentic. Like we always talk about being an authentic self when you're teaching. And like we're saying, you're not trying to just like unload on the client, but people do like to help each other. So if they're hearing something that we're going through, and then they can share their experience, and you can have a communication and a discussion about it, and it can feel very connecting.
Yeah, and I think it's like I think for our clientele, us as teachers, I mean, they see us helping them, guiding them, making them feel better. Yeah. So for them to be able to turn around and do that for the teacher is probably a really good feeling for them.
Well, it always feels good to help somebody, which is why like we love
what teaching. We do. Yeah.
But the clients, exactly like you're saying, we're here for them all the time. So for them to have a moment to like be there for us, a lot of people like.
Yeah, it makes them feel good. And I think like one thing we talked about when you came in today, because we both were like, is if you were that person, like, well, I'll use myself. I'm pretty energetic, perky. So if I don't feel good, it's really obvious. And if I'm down, it's really obvious, even if I'm trying, but faking it. Yeah. So it's good to know. It's good if they know that, because then they're like, why is she being this? What is going, this is weird, you know, and they're like, oh, you know, and then it's like this kind of release of.
That you know what's going on, instead of being like, what? Why is
she being weird? What's going on? But on that aspect, then we've talked about kind of what there's a siren.
That's a weird
It's been a while. So like you and I, the past year and a half.
Couple
years now. Because it was COVID-ish.
Yeah, actually all of COVID.
A few
years.
Yeah, so for both of us, you just knew before I did. Knowing what we've kind of gone through, we've learned some things in terms of, you know, how to stay positive and in the studio. Yeah. And one was you were talking about earlier is knowing faking it is exhausting. Mm-hmm. And knowing what works for you as a teacher in terms of when you can fake it.
Yeah.
And when you need to be like, okay, I need to like take a break.
Yeah. And so I've had like during the time that I was really heavily caregiving for somebody, and when I had a new client, didn't know me, I would just kind of put it to the side.
Yeah.
And just kind of pick my energy up a little bit and just kind of fake it and trudge through it. And then I would have clients after that I'd had for a long time that have known what's going on and know me, and they come in, and then the session's more like during their session they'll like ask me how things are, and we'll talk about it a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so, you have to balance it, because a new person's not going to want to hear about all your stuff, but a client you've been with for a long time wants to, or may want to.
Yeah. And I think also there's certain clients, like for me, I have clients that know what's going on, and others that have no clue.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing. It's like there's those clients that somehow, I don't know if it's like this awareness in their being.
Some people are more sensitive to people's energy.
Yeah.
And
but yeah, I think that there's, I think with knowing when you can give that and when you can't give that.
Yeah.
Also for yourself. It's like if I just focus and work them and da-da-da-da-da-da, I don't have to think.
Yeah.
Because there's that aspect of it too.
Yeah, like sometimes just grinding through a session and just like getting them moving.
Time's going by. I don't have to think about anything else. This is great.
And like getting in the flow, right? So you're in the flow of teaching, and so you're kind of not thinking about the hard things like in life. You're just there in the studio, you're centered. That can actually be almost like a mindfulness practice, right? Where you're taking yourself out of the stuff.
Yeah.
And that just, you get going in the studio.
Yeah.
And so sometimes just teaching itself helps you keep that energy and keep that positivity. But sometimes it's too much and you can't just keep going. And so you need to know.
Knowing when that is. So like for you, because we'll both give examples, but for you, when it became that, when you were in the depth of it and everything, it was getting more and more. What was that line where you're like, oh, okay, now I need to like recharge, step back.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, I feel like for everyone.
Was there a flag?
No, I mean, I think it's different for everyone, but like when you are just dreading every day and everything you're doing, like even the clients you usually love teaching, it's just like, oh my God. And like
the energy's gone.
Yeah, you just have, the drive is just not there, and you just like can't go. And it's like, okay, I need to take a few days off, or I need to take a whole week off maybe. And it's like, you just need to take the time. And if you can't take the time, then you need to, in the time that you do have, like at the end of the day or something, you need to do the things that work for you. Like maybe you're just going to leave all the dishes and laundry because that's just not going to happen.
Exhausting.
After working with clients all day while dealing with other personal issues.
Yeah.
And so knowing those things, like for me, sitting quietly and reading is really like rejuvenating. Going on a walk, doing my own movement practice, those are things that are super important for me.
Yeah.
And so when I was in the depths of like caregiving, it was like I had to schedule my workout time for myself. And I do this anyway weekly because it's like that keeps me going naturally, just normally.
Right.
But it was like, it was even more important during that time to be like, this time is blocked off for me. Like I put like my client A, B, and C at like 9, 10, 11, 12, and I was like 3:30 is Davita. Like I am.
That is my time.
That is my time.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And it's just important to snag that time for whatever thing.
Yeah. And I think
works for you.
Yeah. And like we talked about, it's like, cause both of us are more introvert. So you figure if you're taking care of, because as teachers, we're giving a lot of energy.
Constantly.
And usually that's not a horrible thing. It's not something that drains us. It's, it's what we enjoy. But then when you're, like you said, you're doing these two different givings in different ways. One's a lot more personal, which probably is more emotional than like teaching.
Right.
So you got that aspect of it. But I think it's important to realize that moment of, because I think I think I'm at that point that you were at, where it's like, I woke up today and it's like,
I could keep
can I just crawl back in bed with my puppy? But yeah, you have to realize, and then I was like, my husband's so great. He's like, but you have so-and-so and so-and-so, and you'll see Davita, and you're doing the podcast. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you're right. Yeah. And then I do have a piece of cake waiting at home. But it's kind of like you said, it's kind of like you've got to figure out, can I, without like killing yourself?
Yeah.
Because again, it's not going to kill you, but it is like draining.
It's very draining.
Very draining.
Yeah.
And you've got to be there for the client. And if you can't be there for the client, then is it worth that for the client? Is it worth it for you?
Yeah. And I mean, and I'm just thinking now, like, sometimes people feel like this even when they're not going through a huge personal thing. Like, we're talking specifically about, like, when we're dealing with our family's health issues and long-term care. But sometimes you just get into this, like, time for whatever reason, like certain times of year or
like just you're depressed and you don't really know why, or it's just
there might not be an actual reason.
Not be. It's just kind of like you need a break. It's like you've got, so when you're struggling to stay positive in the studio, it's kind of like, well, why? What's going on? What?
Yeah.
If it's not this big issue like we're talking about, what is it?
Yeah.
And maybe taking a little bit of an inside look okay, why am I struggling here? Yeah. And we're not talking about being like unicorns and rainbows.
No, like staying positive in the studio is not just always like, woohoo! Woohoo! But just being able to be there, be
for
present,
the client, be supportive,
be concentrated, just being able to do their, normal.
Yeah, to make the client feel good. Because if you're not feeling good and you're not able to get to a place where you can relay to the client to feel good, then they're going to leave feeling like, ugh, that was not what I wanted.
Yeah, and then we feel worse because we're like, I didn't give them what I wanted, or so. But it's just so important, like that we said in some previous podcasts, like putting on your own oxygen mask before you help others. So figuring out what those things are that help you feel better to then be able to help others.
Them. Yeah.
Because like we're saying, we do give a lot of energy all day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
And it really is
It's a lot because you're really focused on that person and what's best for them and how to help them and how to guide them. And I had a teacher once, she said, she was ahead of me, so she'd been teaching for a long time. And she watched me with someone, she said, you've got to build a bubble. She said, they're sucking your energy and you're just letting, it's like, build a bubble.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes when you're in that place of, I can't, because there are going to be clients that are like, they're not in a good place.
Yeah.
And if you're not in a good place and they're not in a good place, you don't want to get dragged even deeper.
Absorb energy. Yeah.
So, you've got to kind of figure out how to maneuver. Do I need to step away now?
Yeah. Because that's something like I've struggled with even to this day teaching. Like I've always had to figure out how to build that little bubble around myself because I'm a very like empathetic person and I tend to absorb people's energies. And if somebody's like really stressed out and they come in, I'm like, yeah, I know, me too. Like, but at the same time, it's like, I love helping people. And so when somebody's upset and then I enjoy helping them in the studio to feel better and ground them and guide them. And it feels so good to help people.
Yeah.
But we also have to help ourselves. So when we're the ones going through that, like, yes, some people can just keep going, but there's a point.
There's a point where if you don't, like you said, figure out when you need to step away, figure out when you need to recharge, what do you need to do for yourself, it's going to backfire in a major way.
Yeah. Either your own health.
Yep.
Or
losing it on a client. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anything. Snapping.
But in some way that stress is going to come out, and it's best to do it healthfully when you have some time off and you can decompress and unload.
Yeah, we were kind of joking, but kind of it's like, so you do have to fake it in that, you're in the studio, you have to fake it, and it's exhausting. You get home, it's like, what is your unwind, right? And it's like, it can be watching Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and just sitting and just vegging out on your couch, or
letting your mind
go. And also I think it's important, and one thing I have found is that when you're going through the big things like we were talking about with family members, is not only looking at the studio and staying positive in the studio, but also you've got to take moments away from also feeling like that caregiver and feeling like this and that, even though you can't really truly step away in a full, but for an hour or 2 hours or whatever, to like go on a hike, not have your phone, or have the phone away, or, because if they're in a situation where they're safe.
Yeah.
Everything's okay. You've got to take care of yourself.
Yeah, and you need that time away from everything.
From studio, what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's so important. Like, you need to nourish the other parts of your identity that's not just caregiver or teacher.
Yes. Because I think nowadays with cell phones and texting and this and that is constant bombardment. And when you're in that not positive or trying to stay positive in the studio like that, you've got to have those. It's like watching the news all the time.
Yeah.
If you're watching the news all the time, you're going to get depressed. You're going to get angry. You're going to get stressed out. Yeah. And so it's kind of like taking all that and just going, okay, I'm just going to pretend the world is a happy place today. You've got to do that, I think.
Yeah. And I think I just want to reiterate the idea of staying positive. It's not an unhealthy positive of fake happy, fake positive. It's, trying to just stay positive in the realm of I'm trying to stay okay.
Yeah, because I think that one thing that irritates me is when people say, oh, you're always positive, so it's like you don't know the reality of situations. Oh, you're not looking at the realness. And it's like you can be a positive person, and being positive doesn't mean that you're like, oh, woohoo, the world is great. But it's it's trying to, like we said, when the client's coming in, that you're able to be in that mind frame to help them.
Yeah.
And not be like Debbie Downer on Saturday Night Live or whatever that client.
That was actually very funny. Yeah. No, exactly. And that's exactly right. We're, it's that balance. We're not being her, but you're also not pretending if the building's burning down, you're not pretending no big
deal. It's fine. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Keep going. Yeah, it's finding that balance of a healthy balance.
Yeah.
And I think, what else did we kind of talked about? We talked about that normal routine. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when you're in that not positive space, the normal routine of your teaching can be, what's the word I'm looking for? When it's like a safety net. It's
it feels
known. It's comfortable.
It's comfortable because it's your normal routine.
Everything seems like everything's okay because this is a normal situation.
Yeah, it gives you a sense of normalcy while you're dealing with
not normal.
A lot of other stuff.
Yeah. Because I think that's a good. So I mean, if that's because I think for a lot of times that has been good, knowing, I've got to get up. This is my schedule. It keeps you in a routine.
Yeah. Because it's true, if you are dealing with some really intense stuff in your personal life, it can be really easy to just, do nothing. If you don't have a client schedule. I mean, I'll use COVID as an example. We just kept going through COVID because we were teaching. So I had a normal routine. Every day I got up at this time to teach these people. And, and so other people who didn't have that, it was a lot more disorienting because they didn't
have a routine.
Yeah.
And that can be disorienting, which on top of everything else you don't want.
Yeah. So
that's a good point with COVID too.
Yeah, keeping that routine can feel very comforting to maintain it. And I mean, I remember when I had to take a couple weeks off for a brief time just to deal with all that stuff. And it's like, I took 2 weeks. It helped me to disconnect from everything, do what I needed to do. And then when that 2 weeks came up, I was like, oh, can I get back to the studio?
Yep.
And then getting back to the studio was really refreshing because it's okay, back to that
routine.
And just, yeah.
Yep.
And it actually can help.
Yeah. And I think that's what you did. And I remember it's like very smart in terms of this is exactly what I need. Mm-hmm. And then I need to get back to my safe, my routine, my zone. And I think that's also like everyone kind of has to figure that out for themselves.
Yeah. It's totally unique per person of what that is.
Yeah. Because it's also what you have to think about when you're dealing with, well, what we're kind of talking about, but you can deal with like a major tragedy in your family on many aspects here is you're dealing with a loss. Mm-hmm. That's a long process.
Yeah.
So you've got to figure out for yourself, what is my need in this moment? What is my need in this moment? What is my need now? Because it's going to change.
That's a good point. It's going to change.
It's going to change. So, like you said, I think when the clients know kind of what's like you're not unloading, but they kind of know what you're going through.
Yeah.
Then they'll know in those moments what you do need and don't need. Mm-hmm. Because they've probably most people have been through something in their life.
Yeah, and a lot of my clients shared with me their various stories.
It's scary how many people have stories. It's really scary. Yeah. You're oh my gosh.
And everybody does, and it's life. So,
it is life.
And it can feel very comforting to share that with somebody and have somebody else talk to you about their experience. And people like sharing. People like connecting.
And I think that's like so important, especially now I feel in the world, is having that connection. And I think that's one of the things we love about teaching so much is it is a relationship. And it's not like we're, having a therapy session, but like coming and going and clients, you're a part of their life, you're a part of their routine.
Yep.
So
we provide them a routine and normalcy and comfort. Because in the same way during COVID, my clients are saying, I'm so grateful to have these sessions with you because this gives me a sense of normalcy. They were like, I only know it's Wednesday because Wednesday at 10 I have a session with you.
Yeah.
They had nothing else.
Yeah. And it's like, you can even turn it around, like you just said for the clients. We have clients that go through. I had a client that suddenly lost her husband out of nowhere. And she was away from the studio and came back to the studio. And it was, she was doing fine. And then she sat up and then just burst into tears. Yeah. And it's like, we're all in this environment with our clients that's very much a relationship and very personal because we're teaching their body and their mind and we're kind of going into movement and it's, and so we have to be in a space because if that happens with a client also we have to be there in terms of being that person that they're how to show up for them, that they're showing up when we're going through our stuff.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's a beautiful thing.
I was just thinking that exact same sentence.
It's like such a beautiful. It's a gift.
Yeah.
But I feel like how many other jobs get that?
Yeah.
They don't.
Not many.
No.
Yeah, where you get to share that with somebody and really make a difference in someone's life.
Yeah.
And at the same time give them a space where they can feel safe and have their routine and have a space where they can share what they need.
Yeah. And the fact that they can do that means we're doing a really good job. Because they feel safe. They feel supported. They feel like we're there for them. And then and then they get to do that for us when the teacher is going through something.
Yeah. So I think like the main way to just stay positive in the studio. And again, we're not saying to stay fake positive, but the way to keep going in the studio.
Yeah, without killing yourself, right?
Is just finding that time when you do need to step back, and that's okay.
Yeah, and knowing that's okay.
Yeah.
That there's nothing wrong with that.
It doesn't mean that you're a bad teacher. It doesn't mean that you're
weak.
Yeah, weak. It doesn't mean you're not supposed to be teaching, because, I mean, you can still love what you do and be drained sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like, well, remember when you learned to drive as a kid and you want to drive to the store and you want to drive here and you want to, and then you're like, oh my God, I don't want to drive all the way. Yeah. But it's kind of like that same, we need to kind of keep that excitement of, oh, I want to drive to the store because it's like this new thing. But there's those moments where it's like, oh, we can't drive right now. It's just too much.
I don't want to do it right now.
Too much. Can't handle it. But, yeah.
But yeah, like we've said, it's exhausting to have to fake it and just keep pushing when you just can't. And just finding that balance for yourself, knowing when you can push forward and knowing when you need to step back.
Yeah. And like, I think the good thing for like us is we became friends. Mm-hmm. And then it was pretty quickly after that things went with both of us.
Yeah.
Well, COVID.
Right.
And then family health stuff. But it helps to have, like, you know, also people you work with, people in your studio or other teachers that can also kind of help you.
Yeah.
In terms of talking like a client. Yeah. But then you're not putting it on the client.
Yeah. But having that
having that support where you work, too. Mm-hmm. If you have other teachers that work with you.
Yeah. It's always nice. The connections are always helpful.
The connections are very helpful. I feel like with the clients, with your studio, with your other teachers, with the community.
Yeah.
Although we haven't really. Well, now we're giving it out into the community. But before that, yeah. But I think just realize that sometimes you just can't fake it anymore. And you've got to, like, let it go for a minute and step away and do what you need to do.
Yeah, and then that's perfectly okay, and everybody understands that.
Everybody. Your clients are not going to get mad.
Yeah.
They're not going to leave you. They're not going to get upset. They're going to understand because they've all been through something.
Everybody has.
Or their friends have. Or they know people. Or, it's like, it's life. It's life. So that was hard, but that was good. Yeah, we shared a little bit of our personal there, but that's okay. Yeah, that was good. Yay! Hopefully, we both came in today kind of like, So I'm glad we got to do our podcast today. That helps us do our podcast because we get to talk to all you guys. Yay! And what? Oh, sorry, guys. My phone is buzzing because my brother's calling, probably about my mom. So Travis, let me turn this off. Hold on, please. There we go. Travis, the water bottle. We decided as our sponsor because we didn't really think of one last time, and so here we go. Travis water bottle. TERVIS. Mine's very pretty. It's all rainbow. It's all fun and funky. It's like 60s psychedelic.
Super fun.
Super fun. So that was it. Season 4, episode 12. Stay positive. And also, if you kind of have an experience that you want to share, let us know because we would love to hear. Because I'm sure there are people out there that are struggling. Yeah. In the same way.
Trying to figure out how to balance their personal and business.
Yeah.
And
we're here. We'll listen. Yeah. Okay, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.